Yes. Hi.
Hello.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good to see you. Thank you so much for accepting my invitations. And it is my great pleasure for having you in this short discussion about the most updated trauma interventions. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for the invite.
Great.
Yes.
Would you please explain for our audiences about the your before everything, please introduce yourself for my audiences here, your expertise and your publications and your most current activities about the trauma interventions. And please go on.
Yes.
And
all right.
Start the conversation.
Well, I am Esther Groenewegen. I'm from Holland. I'm from the Netherlands. And I'm the founder of Als Hechten niet vanzelf gaat. So it's unpronounceable for you guys, but it means when attachment doesn't develop naturally. That's the name of my company in Dutch. And what I organize is a platform, a community of parents and professionals and also companies who are dealing with children, adolescents and adults who are very traumatized. And I started my journey when I became a mother, and I became a mother of a very traumatized daughter. And I didn't know what was going on. So I started looking for solutions for her, and I couldn't find the right solutions to help her in my country. So then I started looking worldwide. So I started studying in the States, in Canada, and wherever I could find the right trauma-informed information, tools, and methods to heal my daughter. I have a background in alternative medicine and holistic medicine. And I also worked in the supplement industry. So I know a lot about neurobiology, but I also studied like Chinese medicine and Indian medicine. So I am really broad educated about what's going on in the mind and in the brain and how you can improve brains and bodies and minds. And I have a kind of different opinion about traumatized people or traumatized kids, because regular professionals usually say it's a behavioral problem, or we need to solve it in a cognitive way. But I believe there's also a really strong component. I don't know the translation. I believe there's a really strong point in that the brain is different. They build the neurological pathways in a different way. So the brain is working differently. The nervous system, the nervus vagus, the most important nerve which go through the spine, is also working in a different way. And that's why it's so hard for traumatized children, but also adults, to organize their life. So that's my view and my mission and what I do in a nutshell. And how, and I also made it my mission to put this out in the world. Like, these people or these children are not bad people. They just need help. And their behavior shows us that they need help. So I wrote 2 books about the topic. So one for parents and one for professionals. But it's in Dutch. I didn't translate them into English yet. And I also have courses. So courses for professionals and for parents. And I speak a lot about this topic. So I speak in Holland, but also in other countries about this topic. Yes, long intro.
That's great. And maybe it is interesting for you that in Iranian Persian language, we call the Netherlands Holland too.
Oh, yeah. I know. I don't know why, but my country has so many different names. The Netherlands, Holland. I don't know why. Yes.
And we call the people of the Netherlands the Hollandians.
Oh, really? Okay. Yeah, I lived in the States for 10 years, and then they call us Dutch. So we are from Holland, but they call us Dutch. But
Dutchland, yes.
Yeah. No, but Dutchland is Germany, and so it's too complicated. It's a whole nother.
Thank you for information. Let me start for very important questions. Maybe, as you know, my audiences and are very interested in knowing more about the cultural differences in traumatized people in your country, and the differences between the type of the most common traumatized people, most common trauma in your country, and your type of intervention for traumatized people, their symptoms, and maybe by comparing this kind of symptom with my Persian backgrounds, can show and explain some new background and new windows to the client for know about the trauma.
I am not sure what you are asking me because your sound is not very clear coming out of my computer. Okay. So are you looking for an answer where you try to find out where I live and my culture and trauma, and in your country? And
yes, exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
And then your question to me is, can I put some light on that topic to see if there's differences in that topic?
Exactly. Exactly.
I am not very familiar with your culture. I know.
I will explain for you.
Oh, okay. Are you gonna explain for me or no?
Yes. Yeah. Let me first explain for you about and answer my questions, and then you can follow the samples. As you know, I'm as Iranian university hospital psychologist, and as you know that I explained for you before in our first conversations, I have to visit the traumatized people, and mostly after the COVID-19 pandemic, surprisingly, we have to visit a lot of grief, traumatized people who lost a loved one of their family members. And it is a very hard situation for me and my colleagues as an active psychotherapy that we used to working in the hotlines for suicide, trauma, and as you know, type of our job is visiting and handling the people who bring to the psychiatric emergency wards here. Yeah. And if we can ignore this type of lost trauma, that I have to tell you that I'm visiting in my private office and at the university hospital still this kind of people that mostly suffer from the PTSD symptoms that caused by loss of their loved one or family member. The other very common trauma that we usually can see in or practicing setting and clinical settings, for example, is the rape trauma and car accident trauma, and watching someone who committed to the suicide and finally they lost their loved one of their family, and it are very difficult situations. And most of the time we used to intervention by the supportive expressive psychotherapy. And as you know, the hospital setting, clinical setting, we have to use the supportive because they are very agitated and very anxious. And most of the time they need to have drug interventions for settling down and calm down and become their symptom free. And after the supportive psychotherapy stage, step by step, I started for a kind of expressive psychotherapy for them. And in my private office, there's some differences because, as you know, most of the neurotic people and individual come to the private office, and I have I feel more free to use the supportive, the expressive techniques. Despite of the supportive, I can shift from the supportive to expressive. Mm-hmm. This is a very summary of what I do in my everyday practicing.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for sharing. In Holland, we also have like the regular way of approaching people and children with attachment issues or with trauma issues. But we can see that sometimes that helps people or children, but sometimes it only helps them to a certain point. And then from there, professionals get stuck, the people and the children and the parents get stuck. And because I've been traveling all over the world to get all the trainings from all the very famous trauma experts like Bessel van der Kolk, Bruce Perry, Peter Levine, very, very amazing people. They found out, and they've been working on these researches already for over 30 years, is that when you have a trauma, and that can be like losing a person through COVID, or finding your husband or your child taking their own life. Those are like unbelievable things to experience. But it also does something to your brain and your body and your neurobiology. I'm just making, the last few days, I'm making a webinar about this with another a professor, because it's very, I think, very important to teach the people and also your clients. It's very good to have you in the beginning, to get them back into the saddle. But from there, it's very good that we give them some psychoeducation. You have a brain and you have all kinds of neurotransmitters, so all kinds of things in your body that you produce, and you can influence them in a positive way and in a negative way. And then from there, they can understand better to, at one point, help themselves. And that's still very hard in Holland to get funding for these ways of getting help. But slowly there is movement in it. And I don't know if you're familiar with, so those are my popular ways of treating a traumatized brain and system, is EMDR or reflex integration methods, or neurofeedback. Those are things that people can do as a treatment where they don't have to talk. Like my experience is, especially with kids and children in puberty, they had so much therapy. They are, like we say, therapy tired. They don't want to talk. Don't make me tell this story again and again. And then when you give them the EMDR or the neurofeedback and somatic experience, all these, they call it alternative, but it works very, very well on the brain. It's a way of helping and healing the brain without talking. And I don't know if you're familiar with those ways of treating patients, but they are very helpful and they really like it. And what I found in my many years of teaching this stuff and helping people is my culture is maybe more, I don't want to say liberal, but they found ways to find each other. And then the traumatized children or traumatized parents, they come together and they feel so healed just by being in each other's presence. So they find it scary in the beginning, but at one point when they're together, and I organize those groups and I lead those groups, they find so much healing in, oh, I'm not alone with this problem. Oh, there's other people who lost their father or their mother to suicide. Oh, I have a drug addiction, but I'm not the only one, and I'm not crazy, and I'm not stupid. Because what I found out is that traumatized people, they have really negative things they say to their minds all the time. I'm stupid, I'm dumb, I shouldn't be here, the world is not safe. And if you're aware of that, and if you're aware that those things you say to yourself are not true, from there you also have a tool or like a piece of the puzzle that you can handle your inner demons, I almost want to say. Yeah, so long answer to your question. Yes, so I hope this is valuable for your listeners. And I also think that because that's what I'm working now on the last couple of days with the neurotransmitters. I'm sure you are aware of that too. You can treat the disbalance of the neurotransmitters. You can do that with medication, of course, but you can also do that with supplements. You can also do that with food, and even more important, you can do that with lifestyle changes. And I don't want to go on for too long, but I also follow a guy from the Stanford University, and he says when people are depressed, a very, very powerful tool is as soon as you're awake, you go outside without sunglasses and you let the natural light into your eye. Your eye is directly connected to your brain. It does something to the neurobiology, and it is so sometimes even as powerful as taking medication against the depression, for example. We should all know that. That's why I'm like so passionate about it, because it doesn't take any money. You don't need a recipe. If you're going to walk with another person, you have a conversation. So I don't want to say something about your profession, but we are kind of drifting off our own values and our own tools to heal ourselves. And it's good to have you to get your clients back into the saddle. But at one point you want to make them make the right decisions so they can stay in the saddle, so they're not dependent on the medications. Like I have some friends around me, 20 years on antidepressant. I don't know if that's what we want for our society. I have many children, when they come with the parents with me on my for help, before the age of 10, they have like 3 different medications, the children, but they have a brain that's still full in development. I don't think that's the way we want to go.
Exactly. Yeah. Thank you so much for your very well explanations. And as a question, you refer to the neurobiological aspect of the trauma, and I'm so interested to knowing to know about your point of view about the neurobiological aspect of the trauma. And I, as an Iranian psychoanalyst, are more interested to know about the kind of reenactment of trauma.
I have taught myself to explain it very simple. So, and what I do when I have teachers or institutions, but also parents, I always have my brain. So here's my brain.
Great, thank you.
So when you're traumatized, or when you have experienced suicide of a family member, or like here in my street, we had to lose a neighbor's son of 26 due to cancer. That does something to the parents. That does something to the brothers and sisters. The younger you get this really intense trauma, the more it does something with the brain. So that's why I always take the brain in front of me to make it like clear.
Please go on.
So when you experience trauma, what happens is that your reptile brain, so I don't know the translation in English, hersenstam, I don't know let's call it reptile brain, I don't know the normal word in English, is in connection with the amygdala. So that's like the part of the brain that is like the
cortical midline structure.
What's that?
Cortical midline structure.
Well, I'm sure that's right, but I'm not sure about it in English. Thank you. But there is also the amygdala, which is like I always call it the danger or the fear button. So this part of the brain and the amygdala, they get not right in functioning anymore. So what happens then with like neutral events, they go into the stress. But what we know about the brain, that when children and adults go into the reptile part of the brain, this part of the brain goes off. And so what makes us like decent people, problem solving, feeling of time, taking schoolwork in, goes offline. Here are also the parts, they call it broca. I don't know a translation of that, but that goes about, that's about...
Broca, Wernicke and Broca.
Broca, yeah. Those parts of the brain, they are about speech. If they go offline, and for example, a child or adult is very aroused, we know they're here. One of the first things I teach my teachers and parents, stop talking. I always say, hashtag, keep your mouth shut, because it's no use to talk at that moment. What they need at that time, no matter how old you are, I call it regulation. You need something to get them first online again. And then you can give them something that is possible in your surroundings. But very often what helps the best is put them in movement. So if you only get therapy by talking, and at one point the professional is at a level that they can't, you know, get any further, we know that they need movement. So Bruce Perry, for example, very often he goes out to nature with clients and walks with them, goes outside and then have the talks. But that's how I explain it in a nutshell, very simple, what happens when you're traumatized. So the brain doesn't work anymore. And very often, like children, for example, sometimes they're like 80% of the time, they're only in the reptile brain. And then they get the diagnosis, oh, they're very low intelligence. That's not true. We need to heal their brain. And then the pure potential of that person comes out. But now the big trauma monster is sitting over the brain and they can't develop. And you can take it off. Maybe at first with medicine, to get the first edge off and get a little bit of balance. But very often I advise, go do neurofeedback. See if it's possible to do the EMDR. It's not always possible. See if you can do the reflex integration method. And you can do that at any age.
This is great. And would you please explain more about the automatic and natural healing system and process in our brain when the endorphin started to heal the trauma, and as you know, there's some kind of neuroscience theory that this kind of endorphin system causes a kind of addiction to the trauma by the traumatized peoples. Do you believe to this kind of process?
Yeah, we think of it in a little different way. Of course, you have the endorphins, but the most studies has been done about the neurotransmitters with dopamine, acetylcholine, serotonin, and GABA. And what we believe is that in this society, maybe not so much in your country, but in our society, we have a big, almost like pandemic of dopamine addiction. And what we mean by that is we put screens into our lives, and what almost everybody does is swiping, for example. That swiping is creating a dopamine addiction. But if you have a traumatized brain, you already are very sensitized to addiction. What kind of addiction that is? That can be like sex or drugs or shopping or working. You are already very submissible, or how do you, like, you have a higher chance. And then when you live in this modern world, we see a lot of young adults. The only thing they do is game, like gaming on the things that they do, and that is really, really bad for the brain. And that is the dopamine system being worn out. And we understand it with cocaine, because cocaine has the highest production boost of dopamine, but at one point it doesn't work anymore. So that's why you want to gain a little more and swipe a little more and use a little more. And then at one point, the whole system is collapsing. But we think it's more about the dopamine system being, being damaged.
Mm.
Yeah.
So can we result that the reenactment process in psychoanalysis have a kind of neurobiological background and aspect in our brain? For example, as you explained, that we can find several young individual and most young girl, unfortunately, who put unconsciously in a situation that they abused for several and multiple rape trauma, and they do not what happened for them, and they come to the therapy and they ask for healing. They don't know what they happen for them, that this is a kind of repetition compulsion system work in their unconscious, and why and this is very hard to accept, why I have to put myself unconsciously in a situation to experience and re-traumatize a rape. What happened to the brain?
You mean when they do, for example, the EMDR sessions, when they have to go back to the most painful situation?
Exactly.
And they don't understand why, and then they don't want to do the treatment. Is that what you mean? So I don't want to go back.
Exactly.
I understand that completely because I know how that is. But if you are already many years being like the trauma is in the way, because if you experience trauma, you experience a situation, but the real trauma is the sensations in your body. I know that from my own experience. So you can have a story in your head that's maybe 20 years old, but still day to day, you have the disadvantage of that you cannot deal with people from behind, for example. So wherever you walk, you have to wait for people passing by because you cannot handle that. So if the trauma is also internalized in your body and it's interfering with living freely, that's something you can explain to the girls in that way. Maybe you go a few times more back with EMDRs, which is really painful and really hard. But what it does with the trauma that you carry with you is the brain is like refolding it, like it has a map, it puts it in the wrong place where your body, your way of thinking, the way you deal with life is totally dysfunctional. But EMDR puts the file of the really traumatized story, puts it in another place where it becomes a memory, but it takes the physical dysfunction and the physical things that are in your way, it takes it almost gone. Or how do you say it? Takes it away, most of it. And if you explain it to the girls in that way, they might think, okay, then I might as well go through this huge pain for maybe a few more times with EMDR, but then they know they're going to file the memory in a different way so you can deal with life in a better way. So you don't have to go look back wherever you go, or you can sleep in the dark, or somebody can put a hand on your shoulder and you're not doing like that, because you can take the trauma out of the body. So not only the story in your head, but you can take the trauma out of the body. And I think that's why it's so powerful to do, next to the talking with a person, do also some body work next to it. I think that's the key to healing trauma. And I also think, but we talked about it before, and I can see in my country, but maybe we're a little bit more liberal in that way, when you put girls together and they see each other, and they don't even have to speak about their real stories, but they find the same energy, the same pain. And I can feel it here now when I talk about it. I am not stupid. it's not my fault. Other girls have it too, and I'm okay. I can deal with it, because you have to move on in life. And you can be a complete victim of the situation, or you can overcome it. But I still really believe in the tribe, in the family, in the clan, where people with the same pain, if you bring them together, that is so powerful. Especially for girls like that, but also boys. With boys it's a little harder, but like I have like some boys now, 21 years old. They're very addicted, of course, from the trauma. They're addicted to cannabis or to criminal acts. They go into the clinics, they get them clean, and then when they're out, they don't know what to do, and the parents don't know what to do, so they send them to me. And all what I do is, with these adults, I explain the transmitter story. I explain the brain, and I tell them, so these are like life skills you can adapt, so you can help yourself. And they get like a toolbox of the problems that they were challenging for so many years. And that's, yeah, it's not even that hard. It's not so complicated.
That's great. That's great. Thank you. And I'm thinking that you refer to the kind of body memory, and maybe it is interesting for you that I have to visit some kind of clients who suffer from the kind of body memory that they have because of their past trauma, and most of the time a kind of molesting and the sexual abuse trauma, and they complain that they have a sexual relationship with their partner. Suddenly and accidentally, if the partner touched the special part of their body, they dawn and they cannot experience a kind of orgasmic process during their sex, and they come to the therapy and asking for kind of healing. Or what do you recommend and use for this kind of clients?
Oh, that's an intense question. I don't know if I'm the right person to answer that question completely. But what I do know, because I'm not a sexual therapist, but I do know. Sorry?
I'm not a sex therapist.
Oh, yeah. Sometimes you get those questions. But I do know, because I explain that also to my clients. Sometimes it's complicated to understand. Here you have a challenge or a problem, but when you heal this here, the problem will fade or disappear. So when you do a lot of body work, so your body gets used to being touched. I can think of something like, oh, you go to a massage therapist. I don't know if you have that in your country, but you can also like do a lot of tapping. You can do like, so you can get a relationship with your body first. And you can do that maybe yourself, or you can do that with a body healer, some kind of person, that because having sex or having an orgasm, that's the most intense, intimate thing you can have with another person. So you need to feel extremely safe. But if you are traumatized, you have problems feeling safe in your own body. So I can understand that it's a big challenge to deal with. But I think if you deal, no, like I said, if you have an awareness of, I need to like have a good and healthy and safe relationship first with my own body, then that may improve the relationship with another person. I think that's a really personal and intimate question for me, even for me from Holland.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And yes, I convinced by your answer, and it makes sense for me. And thank you so much, you as a trauma expert. My next question maybe is that what you recommend? But before asking my question, I have you refer to the effectiveness of the EMDR techniques in your country, and as you know, this is a very most recommended technique for using for the traumatized persons. But maybe it is interesting for you that according to our cultural background differences, this kind of techniques seems funny and ridiculous for the Persian people. And really, this kind of technique is going to help me and heal my trauma. I don't believe this kind of technique.
Yeah, but you know what we say, if you're desperate enough, you're gonna try. And everybody thinks really doing this. And in Holland, we have like the lamp now. So the therapist doesn't have to do this. They have all kinds of different programs.
Oh, I didn't know that.
But maybe what's good to know is that it's not just some crazy person who invented this. Like one of the best neurofeedback therapists in Holland, I know him already for 15 years, but he goes to the States to study with the founders of this therapy. And before it became mainstream, in the States, they had all these people coming back from war zones, completely messed up. And nobody, because you're like in the States, you are a hero. Oh, there are heroes. But they all come back traumatized because they all were under such extreme circumstances, losing pals, losing body parts. And then when they come back to the States, they become totally crazy. They have the highest suicide, I think, from the peer group, from the military. And they need to find, they had to find something for them. And then they had the possibility to do the research search with them. And this was helping them a lot intensely. But also I have to say that in Holland, it became very popular. And what I always recommend my clients, don't go into well, you don't have that anymore, the telephone book. Don't go online and look for, oh, this is my zip code and this is closest to my area. Because also with EMDR, like last year, I had some parents who said, oh, I did EMDR. My kid became worse instead of better. And then they joined my program. So it's not without risk. I always tell everybody, go talk to the person first. Ask if you can get a reference. Not that you really want one, but just to see the reaction. Also, maybe, I'm sorry. I have the feeling I'm going a little in your profession. But yeah, I think it's important that as a client, I always say when you buy a kitchen or when you buy a car, you ask more questions than when you go ask for medical or mental help. I think it's okay to ask, do you have a reference, or how long do you do this profession? And do you have a good website? Do they have like testimonials on the website, just to see who do you get yourself involved into if you give your brain like, oh, here, go fix my brain. I think it's really important. And I saw it with EMDR. We saw that there's really good professionals who are very serious about it, but there were also therapists who were like, oh, let's do a little training and do EMDR. I think that's really dangerous. And especially for the clients that we work with. If you have the lighter versions of this imbalance, okay, maybe it's not so dangerous. But for us, I always tell everybody, go check with me. I'll go check what you have to look for. And then I put a referral, because it's not without risk.
Thank you. And maybe I have to tell you that the same attitudes happen for the neurofeedback instrument here. Because we could provide the most updated neurofeedback instrument at our university hospital, but most of the time and all of the time, this kind of instrument used for the ADHD children's, and they do not believe, because our Persian client do not believe that this kind of technique and instruments can heal their symptoms caused by the trauma, depression, the obsessions, they do not believe for the adult problem. And most of the time, this instrument just used for the ADHD children, and the parents are very satisfied by this kind of instrument.
But they might be right, because neurofeedback, I have many people here who do it. I only recommend 3 in Holland. And the best is a guy in The Hague, the guy who's going to the States to work with the researchers. He has a machine there at his practice. I think it's like $15,000. But there's also machines you can buy for $3,000 or $5,000. That's a whole different machine. So if I hear you speak about ADHD and they have the light version of thing on the head or machine, I can understand, okay, maybe you get the brain a little bit more quiet and then a little bit more accessible to knowledge, and it will stay. But if you go into the deeper parts of the brain and it's really dysfunctional, then I need a different machine. So I need a different program, a different computer, and a person who is really experienced in trauma, so that you can have the best machine. But if you don't know how to interpret a machine, like the guy who I'm a big fan of, and I know him already for a long time, and he also treated my girl, like my daughter, for example. She's now 23. She was really, really traumatized, but she also had Gilles de la Tourette syndrome. So it was sometimes unbearable. There was so much stress in that body. We went to do the neurofeedback with this guy in The Hague for something else, but we saw that the Tourette syndrome went down. So it's really, really powerful. And everybody told us, no, if you have Tourette's, that's it. There's something you need to live with. It's now gone with her. She only has it like 5 or 10% when my father died. She went back and she had a little bit of noises and baby or animal sounds again. And when our life is stable, it's gone. So it's that powerful, but you need a guy with experience and you need the right material. If you're interested, I can connect you with the guy, because he loves it, because he's already an old guy. I think he's already 75. And I'm like, don't you need to go on a pension? And he said, I'm trying, but I have a passion for life, for this topic, and I want to put as much in it before I can't anymore. And I said, you have to like delegate. Like a lot of these, my heroes, they do it on their own. They've been doing that for 50, 60 years, and they don't understand that when they're gone, all the knowledge and all the value that's in them is also gone. So I always tell them, like, put it down, write a book or share it with other people before you can't anymore. So if you want to, if it's interesting, I can connect you with him. But he is a person, and together with some other people that really know how to deal with this inner, the deeper layers. And I send a lot of my children to these different clinics, and especially the children who are a little bit older and getting really aggressive, at the point that the parents are saying, yeah, I'm sorry, it's dangerous for me. At one point, the mothers are not strong enough to fight with the kids anymore, because my kids, they fight, they lie, they steal, they do the most horrible things. But at one point, the mother is not strong enough when it's a boy and he's turning 16. So we need to find something to calm the brain down. And neurofeedback, every time they get less violent in the mouth, they get less violent in the body, and they can get knowledge and communication in, and it stays. So it's really, really powerful.
I didn't know that. Thank you for your explanation. My next question is that do you believe in debriefing in trauma and traumatized people? Debriefing is a kind of storytelling by the traumatized person. For the several times, the therapist ask the traumatized person, what happened to you? Explain and explain and explain. Do you believe, and as you know, this is a controversial topic between the trauma experts, that I'm interested to know, do you believe in that or not?
I have my own vision, as you know. But I'm not saying that other things are not helping. You know, the thing is that when people find me, they try first all the other things and they didn't work. But if a person finds this debriefing thing as a thing that helps, God bless them. It's okay for me. You know what I mean? But what I know from my clients is that they don't want to talk about the trauma. And if you can help them first with put the file in a different cabinet so it's less intense, get the body more quiet, then at one point they're more accessible to talk about it. I see that with my daughter. I have my best research at home. I have a son, 19, very well attached, safely attached, doing very well. And then my really vulnerable attached girl, which was really traumatized, attached to me and healing. And I can see now that she's 23, she's still making steps. She's still healing her brain. And yeah, the corona was not so good for her development. So we had like a little dip in it. But she was really now, as she's older, has the ability to talk about how she was always bullied in school, or the boys always think she's crazy and they want to take advantage of her. Now she can talk about it, but not when she was in it. And for some reason, we think that we need to talk about it. But very often it's one big ball of chaos in the brain of our children. And it's very scary to talk about it. But that's my opinion. And for some people, I know adults and parents of the children, they love to talk about what happens to the kids and how the kids react. But even in my courses and the people that I help, I say there is a space for talking about what happens and what's going on. But we're not going to put it like that, because then all the focus is on what's wrong and what happened. There's space for it, but then I take it back. Okay, and what can I do to heal your brain, to heal your nervous system, and to put your nervous and your neurotransmitters in balance? And very powerful is also, especially when the parents are so much in the negative stories. Okay, and then I always say, okay, you get homework for me. Because they have a book where they put a gratitude journal. They always have to write the gratitudes at the beginning or the end of the day. But also, like, write down what you did good. Write down what your child did good. Because we're so much focused on the negative. And it seems like a really simple experience or a simple exercise, but it's really powerful, because you make yourself think and look for positive things. And then some parents are like, I don't know anything good about my child. And I'm like, well, it's still breathing. Oh yeah. I said, sometimes you really have to dig deep, but we have to find a way also to rearrange our neurological paths. Because I was also at the point, my child was so special, didn't want to talk to me, didn't want to touch me. We couldn't put anything of information in her brain. She was hurting other children. It was really hard to love that kid. So all I saw was a kid that I didn't know how to deal with. And I didn't get the tools when I really needed it. And that's why I have so much passion and mission for it, to share it to parents, but also teachers who are like trauma-informed teachers who want to understand our children better. Because when they're 20, 16 or 3, they can be really, really hard to deal with. But I always say, I always have like a stuffed animal, like it's in the form of a monster. It looks like a monster, but underneath there is a child who really wants to connect and really want to heal. But it's like hijacked by this trauma or by this trauma monster. And that makes it so complicated.
Thank you. This is great. And you refer to verbalizing the emotions. And as you know, the main missions in psychoanalysis, psychotherapy is changing the unverbalized emotion to kind of verbalized languages.
You want me to reflect on that, you mean? Like what I think of that? I'm not sure what I can answer. If we...
Before you explain, I mean that you're referring to the subcortical structure, and you explained about the limbic amygdala process, and as you know, in psychoanalysis and the mostly in Kleinian approach, they believe that preverbal stage under the 2 years, that most of the infant experiences emotion without verbalizing, and they save this kind of emotion in the unconscious, and we have to verbalize this kind of emotion. And the main mission for this kind of approaches is translating the emotions to a kind of verbal languages who is understandable for the clients and for the therapist. Do you believe that kind of process works for the trauma and traumatized persons?
I am not sure of that. My first gut feeling is no, I'm sorry. When they are like pre-verbal, a lot of stuff can already be happened to them. That trauma is in their body. It's in their brain, it's in their body, but they don't have a story with it. But it is, you can heal it, but I don't think you can heal it by searching to get a story. But maybe there's techniques I don't know about that can get it. So yeah. What I do know, what I also want to, my brain goes sometimes faster than what comes out of my mouth, because there's something I want to answer what you asked before. I'm sorry. When you were talking about, because I always feel it so much in my own system still. When you were talking about the girls that were raped, the body is also feeling guilty because they could not defend themselves. A very good technique to get them out of this submissive state and feeling guilty and feeling ashamed about it is doing something with martial arts. So that can be boxing or kickboxing or other forms of martial arts. It doesn't have to be that explosive, but finding the leadership in your body will also change the way you feel and think about yourself. That's what I wanted to add to that topic. And who did a lot of research in that is Bessel van der Kolk, for example. I think you're doing a course with him now. He's amazing. And he does that already for many years. He takes like street kids from downtown LA who are, everybody like, we're like, okay, we did it, done it, you're out. He takes them in and he does that research with them. And he does also, he has really good results, for example, with theater. So he gets those kind of like leftover kids and people from the streets. He takes them in and he says, okay, we're gonna rehearse a Shakespeare play. I don't know if you know Shakespeare in your country, but it's like a very famous guy who made really famous stories all over the world. Everybody knows about these stories, and it's always very tragical. But what helps is traumatized people are stuck in their own trauma. They don't know how they feel. They don't know what to do. They're like one big ball of chaos. Playing theater makes you think of, when you have a role to play, okay, how does that person react? How does that look in your face? How does that look in the way you approach the other people in your play? And for some reason, that is really, really healing the traumatized brains of the children and adults who are doing those plays. So if you talk about, okay, I don't know how you called it, but how did you, the therapy or the approach you asked me last, how do you call it? About the words, giving it words when they are pre-verbal?
Kleinian approach.
A client approach. That could be something.
Friedrich psychoanalysis approach mostly by Melanie Klein and Winnicott, Ferber, beyond.
Because that could be something that could help, that they, like I said before, here there's like a problem, but if you practice this and when you exercise this part of the brain, it could heal this other part. And the most hard thing is the stuff that happened pre-verbal, of course. So maybe that could be theater. And that's why I always say to teachers, whatever heals the best for children, we take it out of the system because we have to save money. When I was in school, we had to read notes from music. We need to play an instrument. We need to do creative stuff. All what is regulating for us, system and brain, we take it out. Now they only have to learn. So what do? You only practice this. But we need to practice this because this is attachment. This is healing. This is connection. And we take it all out. So we make it extra hard for children. And if you look at art, for example, I will never forget the question that you asked to another guest when you said, okay, what do you think? Now we have AI. Will there ever be another Van Gogh or Salvador Dali? I thought it was an amazing question. Thank you so much for that question. That changed my life. But if you look at traumatized, if you look at artists, like really famous artists, if you read their biologies, it's never a happy person. So I think trauma can be your gift. And when you're in the middle, you think that's a stupid statement. But when you make peace with it, when you work with it, it can be transformed to something beautiful. Van Gogh, really unhappy person. Salvador Dali was also crazy. Picasso, I think he also had problems because I know he was doing a lot of cocaine, for example. So traumatized people don't have to be like losers. But you need to find a way to transform it to an art form. If you look at music, most of the music forms were grown from trauma. The rhythm and blues, the black people who were slaves in America, rap music, those were from the ghettos in the 80s. So trauma, of course, you don't want trauma, but beautiful stuff can come out of it also. And if we understand that, then we can get the traumatized people and let them do that kind of stuff. What Bruce Perry also told me, of course we want children in school, we want them to learn. But why do we do it in such a boring way? Tell the children when they need to learn the rules about certain way of writing or a certain way of calculating. Give them the things they need to learn, but tell them, make a play out of it, make a rap out of it, make a song out of it. I think that's what we need to make a connection with what the trauma that they have, but connect into their world. And yeah, I hope I know. I hope I'm making any sense.
I understand. Yes, yeah. Makes sense to me. Thank you. And maybe my final question is, as you know, trauma is a kind of forever scar in our mental systems. And what we can expect from a very well done trauma intervention for somebody who suffered and came to us. What is the ultimate goal of the successful therapy for a traumatized patient?
Yeah, and I get that question more often. Can they heal? Can you can you get rid of it? And I think it depends on the tribe you have around you. So people can have the same trauma, but when, like if you take the people who come home from the war, if you come home as a husband and the wife understands you and the children can find a way to deal with your coming home, that person can be healed and has a higher chance of finding a way to go on with life. But if you come home and the wife cannot deal with your problems and maybe your children have other problems, then you come home in the trauma, you come home with your trauma situation, but there's no soft place to fall. There's no tribe. There is no, a place for you where you can be dysregulated. And I think that's really, really important. If I look at my life, I had not a good childhood. I had like some stuff happened to me that is not good. Girls should not experience that. But for some reason, I always had a drive to like, okay, I can be a victim or I can overcome this. I am in charge of that. But I think I will never be free of it. So my challenges are still, and I always had a successful life. Like my last career, I was also successful in it. But I always feel like I am not enough. I'm stupid. I am this, I am that. But I caress it like it's my little girl. So I make peace with it. Same with friends. I have amazing friends. But this guy, I always call it my attachment monster. He's always fooling me. Like here, I know I have friends. I have a good life. But when I have too much stress, I go here and he is talking to me. But I should not listen to him. So I help myself. And it can be really simple. If I take the example with friends, what I do, I have like frames where I have my friends in groups like, oh, okay, if I feel low, no, but I do have friends. So when you're older, you can train yourself. Like when you're younger, you want to deal as much with the trauma and healing it non-verbal. But when you're older, you can make cognitive, I don't say rules, but life skills to reassure you're not alone. You're safe. You do have friends. You're not stupid. And I think my negative sentences will never go away. But I have a different way of talking back to them. Thank you. You try to keep me safe, but this sentence is not necessary anymore. That's how I see it.
Yeah. So you mean that the kind of acceptance positions, a kind of acceptance that most of the acceptance and commitment therapy, Stephen Hayes approaches, believes that the final goal of the therapy in these approaches is getting to a kind of acceptance of the past experiences and past traumas. Do you mean that?
Well, what I just explained is very important. That's just life skill, day-to-day life skills. But I do think whatever your age is, because I'm also working on trauma that was installed in me. And like I said, okay, the stories, I can keep talking about it forever. Oh yeah, I was this, I was that. I have them all in my diary. This is what happened to me. But the consequence of that was that the trauma was in my body. I did a lot of body work to get it out of my system. So a lot of my anxiety, fears, and dysfunction in my life, I healed with the options that I shared with you before. So that is what you need to do next to embrace what's left. Like, I'm 54. I will never have the brain of a 15-year-old or an 8-year-old. So I did a lot of healing. I did a lot of repathing or remaking the neuropathic ways. But there will always be a sensitivity, I think. Yeah. So then I think the people that you are working with, then the cognition comes in, and you can cognition is really strong. But when you're young, you want to like try to do it non-verbal. And and like I said, the examples that I shared are really, really powerful. So I really hope for the clients and the people who are listening to this program that they reconsider investigating neurofeedback, reflex integration therapy. It's called Maskhutova. I don't know in English, but it's a Russian or like a Eastern European lady, Svetlana Maskhutova, who invented this whole thing. It's really worthwhile to reconsider and be curious about the new stuff that is, well, it's not even new, but it's coming out more and more. Next to the amazing job that you are doing already, because it will help your work even better. You have more tools in your toolbox to choose from.
It makes sense.
Yes.
Thank you, Esther. And it was my great pleasure having a very nice interview and discussion with you. And thank you for sharing your knowledge, wisdom, and thank you for your time and accepting my invitation for this video meeting. And you will make us so happy if we could have a promise from your side for a future and for us another topic.
Hey, and if you ever need me to come to your country, I love to travel. Invite me to come over.
Maybe I send you an invitation and invite you officially from my university hospital to visit our university hospital here. It's a great pleasure. I have to talk with my authorities here. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. I was really blessed with this invitation. Thank you so much.